I'm Fraser Flight. I'm a Zimbabwean. I've been sailing since I was very young, and I'm part of the Global Solo Challenge with you, aiming to leave Vigo in 2027. Really looking forward to it.
Where does your passion for sailing come from?
The passion for sailing comes from my grandfather. So he was born in St. Vincent in the Caribbean, and he sailed partial circumnavigation. He met a crew in Jamaica, and he sailed through the Panama Canal, through the South Pacific, and ended in Cape Town. And when that voyage finished, he migrated up to Rhodesia, as it was at the time, in the late 50s. And then he settled there and he started a family. And he inspired me from a very, very young age to sail, and taught me to sail before I could walk. We've sailed on farm dams, on lakes, and then into, obviously, because we're landlocked, we didn't get much time on the sea when I was younger. And he always taught me and inspired me to sail. And that's kind of where the passion started. And it grew from there with racing for my country, racing overseas, just being generally, sailing has always been my life. And it still is to this day, as I'm a professional mariner now, working on some of the largest boats out there.
What lessons do you think you've learned from sailing?
Sailing's definitely taught me self-reliance and problem solving. So I find, with having come from Zimbabwe, we have very ancient boats that are always breaking down. So it's taught me to problem solve when something weird and wonderful happens, and how to fix that when there's very little materials for me to have at hand. So that's one of the key skills. It's taught me to trust myself, to trust my instincts. And through my professional career, I've learned a lot of kind of a respect for safety, a respect for the sea, and been kind of taught the sea is mighty, and that has always stuck with me.
And what got you into solo sailing in particular?
Solo sailing definitely is because of the challenge. I see the solo circumnavigation as the Everest of sailing. I've always been one, since I was very young, I always took the hard way. If there was an easy or a hard way to do it, I'd always take the hard way up the mountain. I'd take the hard way down the course. If there was up a river, I used to row quite a lot. And if there was a harder course to steer, I'd always take that one, because I like to challenge myself. So that's what drew me to solo sailing, is I have to rely entirely on myself and my skills. I get a lot of enjoyment from being alone when I'm at sea.
Do you have a sailing hero?
I do. I actually have three. So it kind of starts with Jessica Watson, because she beat me to what I wanted to do. I wanted to be this youngest person to sail solo around the world. So Jessica beat me to it. I was 13 when I first said to my parents, I want to sail around the world. And that was when we had some major economic troubles in the country, in Zimbabwe. And we were landlocked, and we had absolutely no money. So there was no way for me to pursue that. And 2 years later, Jessica Watson crossed the line, and I thought, I want to be her. So I've read her books and thought she's fantastic. And then, of course, there's everyone's favorite solo heroes is Knox Johnson, simply because he was the first, and he went through all the trials and did something that no one had ever done before. And Morticia, simply because his love of sailing, he wasn't a competitor, he just loved to sail and be alone. And I see a lot of myself in how Morticia handled himself.
What is your fondest memory of a time when you were sailing?
My fondest memory, I've got a few, and they all involve wildlife. So very young, where I learned to sail kind of in a racing capacity. It was a small lake called Lake Chivero, just outside of Harare, where I grew up. And we were very, very fortunate. We could sail about half an hour away over to the other side of the lake, and we could sail past rhinos. And it's something you don't hear sailors talking about, is being in a boat, comfortable, sailing very quietly and smoothly through the water, and seeing rhinos on the shore, or buffalo, and anything like that. But on the sea, my favorite has been when I was delivering a boat out of Cape Town. Again, I was solo, and very quiet day, not much wind, and a mother whale and her calf came up right next to me, and they sailed with me for about half an hour, just checking out the boat, just being quite serene. And as there wasn't much wind that day, it was very easy, very clear to see them under the water, and they just played around with the boat. At no time did I feel threatened that they were going to try and knock me sideways. But that's one of the key memories for me, is a quiet day observing the wildlife and being around the birds, around dolphins. I'm lucky enough to say rhinos and buffaloes and elephants. So it's always wildlife for me.
Tell us about your sailing and racing experience.
So started very early when I was probably about 6 months old. It was the first photo I've got of myself on a boat with my grandfather. We had a 26-foot wooden boat. It was called Hooligan, that we used to sail on the farm lake. It was a Matilda, so it was built to be to sail around the barrier reef. So it had very, very shallow draft, but perfect for the lake sailing and light wind sailing that we had. From there, we progressed when we moved off the farm and we ended up in town. I started sailing from about 7 years old on Optimists. From Oppies, moved up to lasers, darts, tornadoes. That was where I was representing my country in regional championships around Africa, around Southern Africa. Did a lot of sailing in dinghies for most of my teenage years. At 18, I didn't compete in the Cape to Rio, but we followed the race. We were a little bit late to the start line and sailed across to Rio and came back via the Roaring Forties and had my first taste of the Southern Oceans and absolutely loved it, with 60 knot breezes for 2 days, sustained 40s, up to 6 meter waves. And I was in heaven. I absolutely loved being down in the Southern Ocean. So I decided from there that I wanted to pursue a full-time career. Initially, I wanted to be a professional racer, but I didn't get much traction in that. So I ended up moving over to the Caribbean, kind of going back to some roots there from my grandfather again. And I spent the last 11 years working on various boats, from anything from 40 meters up to now where I'm working on an 80 meter, although this current one is a motor yacht, but I still get to sail in between all of these and take guests out, and I do it professionally. And I'm quite experienced now. I've got my Master of Yachts 3,000 ton, so I've elevated myself up to running a crew of 20, and I've become quite adept with the safety aspect, with the weather aspect, with being in tune with what I need to do and how I need to navigate. And I'm very, very, very keen to get onto the Global Solo Challenge and finally be able to do what I've been wanting to do since I was 13 years old.
You mentioned Jessica Watson. Is it her circumnavigation that got you interested in sailing around the world?
I think I always had the dream to sail around the world prior to that, and because I wanted to do it about 2 years before she started. But it was her achieving it that told me it was a viable dream, because the dream had kind of died a little bit when I realized the limitations that were against me at 13 years old. And the dream kind of went down. And then when she did it, I said, well, why can't I do it? And I started working towards it. It's taken far longer than it ever took her, but we're finally getting closer and closer to that start line.
Why did you choose the Global Solo Challenge?
The Global Solo Challenge came up. Initially, I was intending to sail outside of a race. And upon looking at all the races and seeing what the various options were, I was not of the experience to be in the Vendée Globe, and I didn't have the budget to get into those boats. The Golden Globe race in its current form, with the outdated, or I shouldn't say outdated, but the older technology available, it's only available in 1968, didn't appeal to me. I wanted to have the modern equipment. I wanted to be able to use GPS. I wanted to be able to use Starlink and keep the internet out there. And then Global Solar Challenge came across, and it had everything that I wanted from a race. It had the safety factor of having yourself and all the other competitors monitoring each other and being available if something went wrong. It was there for the budget that I could achieve, and it was open to sailors of various different backgrounds and experiences. Having not been a professional racer in the last 10 years, only been amateur racing, I felt that this was the race that could really tick all the boxes for me and allow me to sail in a boat that I'm comfortable with, possibly slightly older, that I could refit to my own and race and be doing the circumnavigation in a really well-founded platform.
How do you plan to prepare for the Global Solo Challenge?
So my plan from here on out is I'm intending to buy a boat in the next 2 months or so. I'm hoping we're filming this in April. I hope by July, August, I've got a boat. The intention is then to refit it for a year. I'm still having to work through for at least until about 6 months out from the start. So I work 2 months on, 2 months off. And so it kind of limits my time to do the refit and the training. So the intention is from summer of this year to refit the boat, to get it ready in the way that I would like it to be for the challenge. And I'm going to spend a year training out of the UK. We'll do my qualifying passages in the boat as it stands, get my IRC rating, and then the intention is to sail around the UK up into the North Sea and find some heavy weather to test both the boat and myself, and to do some longer passages. Initially, I will probably take my amazing girlfriend with me as I learn the techniques in that particular boat of how to do everything solo. And as soon as I'm comfortable, we'll be doing longer and longer passages just by myself. As we get closer to the race, as I say, probably about 6 months out, I will depart from my current employment and will be full-time training, provisioning, final tweaks, final repairs, and getting everything just right, and move down to Vigo and be ready to start.
What do you think will be the biggest challenge in preparing for the Global Solo Challenge?
So far, I'm finding getting to the start line is quite a challenge, given the fact that I'm working in between and I'm doing it fully on sponsorship money, because my intention is to donate everything that is made when I sell the boat, or any merchandise that is produced after the race is going to go to charities within Zimbabwe. As a result, I'm trying to find donors and sponsors, and it's proving to be quite challenging. It's harder than I realized. Once I do get to the start line, because there is no other option, I will be getting to the start line. I think fatigue is going to be a massive issue, and I want to train as hard as I can to manage my fatigue and ensure that I put in processes and checklists basically for myself of, am I making the correct decision? If I'm very tired, if I've only been getting 20 minutes of sleep and we're in heavy weather or heavy traffic, that I make the correct decision, and how do I do that? I'm also quite aware of I am a competitive person, and I need to put in checks and balances on myself to ensure that I'm still being safe while competing in the race and being fast. There's no point going into the race and not coming back at the end. So making sure I keep myself safe, and I have my team monitoring me, yourself as well, who's going to be keeping an eye on me, making sure that I'm making the best decision weather-wise and traffic-wise and boat-wise, to ensure that I'm getting the rest that I need, and the boat is staying safe and I'm not pushing it too hard.
So what is your greatest fear?
My greatest fear is reaching old age and not chasing my dream. This is a question I got asked, and I've been thinking about it for a long time. Everyone has various fears, I'm sure, which are intrinsic to danger to their life. I'm more scared of reaching an age where I can no longer do the things I want to do, and looking back and saying, why didn't I do that? And that's a large driver. I'm driven by that fear in quite a large way to do the Global Solo Challenge, because I don't want to get to that age and think, this is a dream I've had since 13. I want to do it.
How do you manage loneliness and mental pressure?
So I'm reasonably lucky in that I'm planning to have quite a bit of communication with my shoreside team and my family and friends, but there will be times where I won't have that. And to me, one of the biggest things I carry around with me is love letters. There's letters from my girlfriend, and she's fantastic that she always gives me little notes whenever I go to sea, and I have a little jar that I keep these in, and that is what I go to when I really need a boost, when I'm tired, when I'm frustrated, when there's just nothing seems to be going right. I can rifle through this little jar and pull out a little love note from her, and it really helps. My parents have been doing the same. They've been putting together slowly, as we go forward for the next 2 years, little videos that I haven't seen yet, but I'm sure they're going to be given to me when I go onto the race. So I'll see them for the first time when I'm at sea. Little words of encouragement, pictures with notes on them. I plan to do something similar to what Jessica did in the coach roof inside the cabin, to allow people who are close to me to put little messages that I can find and that'll spur me on.
So what role do family, friends, your partner play in an adventure like this one?
So they've all come on board. I've got every single one of them working. I've thrown them all into this. My amazing parents and girlfriend have come on board. We've started, because we're doing this solely for charity, we've started a not-for-profit company, and they're helping me manage that. And they're all trustees to ensure that the money goes where it needs to go to get to the race, but also that the charities are taken care of at the same time. So they've been helping me with the media content, with talking to sponsors, with finding sponsors, with generating interviews and events that I can go to showcase what I'm trying to do, help those charities. My brother's come online and he's managing the website for me. All my friends have been getting involved, helping, just sharing on Facebook and just getting the message further out there and encouraging me and giving me little bits of advice here and there. And as people find things that might be useful for me, like a couple of friends said, "Hey, we found an old sextant. Do you want to take it with you? Do you want this old compass?" And everyone's really gotten behind me and given me so much encouragement that the enthusiasm is infectious, and it just keeps me moving when I think that I'm not getting to the goals. But little by little, everybody's helping. There's no ways I could do this by myself.
Have you already had a chance to connect with other skippers of the Global Solo Challenge?
Not in person yet. However, on the group chat that we all have seen, that there's quite a few guys who are close, and hopefully in the UK. I've only just got back home to the UK yesterday. So I'm hoping now in this time that I've got at home, I'm going to connect with them a bit more. We've had a few texts back and forth with a few of the competitors, with yourself as well. So I'm looking forward to now going and meeting a few people. Next week, I'm hoping to go to Belgium and meet Ruben, who's unfortunately pulled out, but going to go and look at his Open 40 and see if that might be a boat that I might take around the world.
How important do you think is the community and camaraderie aspect of the event?
Absolutely massive. One of the most important things, as I've realized. Having originally decided to do this alone and then finding the Global Solar Challenge and finding the community and seeing how much everyone helps and how much advice is coming through, there's certainly stuff that I've learned from the community and the group chats and talking to the other skippers. It shows me how much there is to know, and how much one thing I may know one or two ways to achieve a certain goal, and everyone's got a different idea and a little bit tips and tricks and all of these things, and that community wouldn't have come about if I hadn't joined into the race. And now I'm seeing the huge value of it. The next thing that I see as a huge benefit is when we're all at sea and we're going around and we're in the Southern Ocean or we're heading towards Cape Horn and it's getting tough, it's nice to know that there's somebody close by who's going through the same things, and you can possibly communicate with them and say, "Look, I know what you're going through," and get that empathy from the fellow racers and the community around that, all the team support that's for me. But I'm sure as I get to meet the other sailors, all of their teams will all come together, and I'm seeing a really special kind of bond developing between everyone. And I think it's really important that that's going to be something that's going to come to aid as we get further into the race and get close to the start line.
Do you already have a boat in mind that you might take in the Global Solo Challenge?
I do. So I'm definitely going for a 40-foot, and my intention is to either take a class 40 or an open 40. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. And in an ideal world, I'd get one of the older pointed bow class 40s to take with me and to take me on this journey, to not take with me. And that's my intention, is to go and find one of these fast enough to get out of trouble when the weather gets heavy, but strong and proven boats that can handle the conditions and are set up well for single-handed sailing.
The format of the GSC is a little different from other events. Do you like the concept of staggered starts?
I do. We in Zimbabwe, I don't know if other offshore races do this too often as a stern chase, but I think it's a brilliant idea. I really like the idea of everyone having their handicap established before the start, and it's a race to the finish. You can see the guy ahead of you, and you can see your gains and losses, and you're not doing your little calculations on handicap to try and extrapolate how fast you need to go to get there. He's ahead of you or he's behind you and gaining, and you need to make that speed and just get to them. So it's a very tangible goal, having somebody either ahead or chasing you from astern, that you know, right, this is how, and it's going to make for some really good racing, I think.
Have you already secured the budget for your participation?
I'm almost there. So I've got quite a hefty budget, but that is only purely because I want to develop to gain more funding for charity. So I've managed to secure two major sponsors. One is a company called Shipyard Supply, and the other is a private sponsor that I've worked with, and he's also come on as a major sponsor. And they've put me very close to the goal of purchasing the boat. I'm hoping to get one more naming sponsor on board and a few more material sponsors. So between all the offered items of equipment that I might need, whether it comes to energy systems or sales or rigging or shipyard services, I've seen that I'm getting quite close to my goal. I think if I get a major naming sponsor on board, or maybe two more less major sponsors, I will be there at my goal. So I'm not far off, and it's very encouraging considering I'm still over 2 years out from the race. On top of that, there's a lot of crowdfunding. A lot of the community in Zimbabwe and abroad, ex-Zimbabweans and ex-Rhodesians, have really gone on board phenomenally and are supporting me in various different ways. Crowdfunding's come up quite well, and I'm going to see this grow, I imagine, in the next 2 years.
Do you like the choice of Vigo as the starting port for 2027?
I think so. I've never been to Vigo as of yet. However, I will, in the course of my training, end up down there. When I look at it on the chart up here behind me, I think it's a fitting start from my view of the traffic in the area, that you're a reasonable distance from the Bay of Biscay and all the heavy commercial traffic in the English Channel, as well as you can get far enough offshore from Gibraltar to cut through the traffic and get into the good trades, get into the good wind, to get us down towards the equator and ultimately towards Cape of Good Hope. So I think it's actually a perfect mix of everything. Having to start in the Mediterranean itself and pass through Gibraltar, I think would be a huge challenge for the fleet, with the solo sailors having to just pure fatigue of traffic avoidance and the various different winds that can affect you. So I think being on the Atlantic coast of Europe is a fantastic starting point.
What does it mean for you to represent your country in a global event?
This is a very special part for me. Is no other Zimbabwean has ever sailed solo, unassisted, and non-stop around the world. So that's a big thing for me, being the first person to do this. And as a result, I'm getting a lot of encouragement from Zimbabwe at large. They want to see their countrymen succeed. We're a small little country. We are entirely landlocked with no access to the sea. And not many people go and do this. We have a very small sailing community. So doing something different, something that everyone can get behind and be like, wow, this is something we never knew about. And to kind of inspire people to do something amazing, even though they may have hardships, that we come from a small country that has its troubles, as every country does, but to just go beyond that and say, look, there is ways to chase your dreams, and they may be impossible. They may look like something that is impossible on paper, given from where you come from. That's not the case in this modern world, that you can go and do these things. And being the first Zimbabwean to do it is a big thing for me. Being from the landlocked aspect, although there are landlocked countries in Europe, they all have reasonable access to the sea. Being there where we have to go through international borders and it takes us hours and hours and hours to get to the coast, let alone own a boat out in a different country, is challenging. And I can probably think of 5 people from my home country who own boats who can actively sail on the sea. So I think that's a big thing for me, is showing that you can get to these places and do it.
Do you plan to link your participation in the Global Solo Challenge to a social message?
I certainly do. So, as I've said, I'm doing this for a charity cause. The 2 charities that I am supporting is one called African Parks. They handle a large amount of parks within Africa, one of which is in Zimbabwe, and it's called Matusadona, and they're busy bringing back the rhinos. So a conservation message is definitely one that I want to put forward in my challenge, and it's something that's very close to my heart, seeing as my best memories of sailing have all come from wildlife and that interactions with wildlife. So conservation is definitely a big social message for me, as well as taking care of people. So the other side of the charities I'm supporting are various charities that support old age pensioners within Zimbabwe. So I want to help the people of the country, whether it be in their old age or in their young age, learning to read, learning to respect the wildlife. And it all kind of encompasses into one message that is one of the other people that inspired me. He's not a sailor, but he's an adventurer. He's from my home country. His name is Eric de Jong, and he does incredible cycles and walks and challenges at long distances, all in support of pensioners. And he has an amazing message that kind of sums up everything. And it's do good, do epic. While you do something amazing, do it for a good cause. And that's what I want to do.
And if anyone out there is thinking about a circumnavigation or starting to sail offshore, what message would you give them?
I'd say go for it, but do it safely and learn your limitations as you go. So do some small sea trials, get to learn the boat, get to learn if you're sailing double-handed or single-handed, get to learn your limitations, your crew's limitations, and take it in small little steps. Don't throw yourself into an unknown situation just to try to prove yourself. The ocean is a powerful place, and it will eat you up and spit you out. Be careful, but chase the dream. Do it, but do it smart.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell the people following the Global Solo Challenge?
I would love to encourage anyone who's following the Global Solo Challenge to come and see how I'm trying to go through my campaign to get to the start line. I've got my website, which is the flightaroundtheworld.co.uk, and there's a lot of interesting stuff there on Zimbabwe. Get to learn the country that I come from, my kind of background, and the sailors who've been through the country. And I'd encourage them to get to learn why a man from the Caribbean, in my grandfather, who'd sailed around the world, seen a vast majority of it, decided to settle in this tiny little African country, because it has so much to offer and it is an incredible little place to be.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell the people following the Global Solo Challenge?
I would love to encourage anyone who's following the Global Solo Challenge to come and see how I'm trying to go through my campaign to get to the start line. I've got my website, which is the flightaroundtheworld.co.uk, and there's a lot of interesting stuff there on Zimbabwe. Get to learn the country that I come from, my kind of background, and the sailors who've been through the country. And I'd encourage them to get to learn why a man from the Caribbean, in my grandfather, who'd sailed around the world, seen a vast majority of it, decided to settle in this tiny little African country, because it has so much to offer and it is an incredible little place to be.